can keep, so blame it on the night.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Peacekeeper. Man, that's something we all need. And so fortunately, I get the opportunity to introduce our guest speaker. He has been a colleague of mine. We both we're police officers, probably close to 20 years. Just before I retired, he started this wanting to be promoted and be a big shot. And so before I left, I ended up actually working for him. We were colleagues together. We used to fight and, do all the kinds of things when you're of equal power. But one thing I appreciated him, especially not so much as being a police officer, but as later on as a council member. We're going to be talking about how we can keep peace and be a leader. And that's what our speaker's about. He went to the FBI Academy. He attended Long Beach, got his master's degree. He went to Chapman, got his bachelor's degree, and did associate arts here in Modesto. He's married 20 years, he's got 3 kids, and I know every one of them. They think he's the greatest thing in the whole wide world, and I just wonder where they're coming from. Our speaker today is a talented person, and I got to tell you, what impressed me more than anything with Rick is what he has done recently since he became a deputy assistant city manager and helped us out during the last couple of years. And he's going to hopefully talk a little bit about that peacekeeping and leadership role and the care in dealing with our homelessness here in Modesto. Please welcome today, and help me welcome, the Assistant Chief, Rick Armendariz.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'm good. Morning. How you guys doing? First off, thank you all for taking time off your guys' busy schedule to spend some time networking, sharing, and learning from each other, right? Because we all have the same goal, and that's to make Modesto better and make our community better. So thank you again. As mentioned, Rick Armendariz, I actually have been working here at the Modesto Police Department for 23 years now. And for the last year and a half, like Doug mentioned, over at City Hall for the last year, almost a year and a half now, assisting as much as I can as an interim deputy city manager. So I'm very proud, very happy to serve this community. Not only do I work in this community, but I live in this community. My wife and I, my wife works here. We have 3 girls. They all go to school here. My parents, thank God, are still alive. They live here. My in-laws live here. We have family that live here. So we have stake. And I share that with you just for one reason. We have a lot of officers, men and women, who serve this community who have the same situation. Either live in this community, have family in this community, and have stake in that community. And that's the kind of public servants that we're looking for in this community. We want to make sure that we hire people that have an interest in this community and have stake in this community. So I talked about my professional life, just a little bit about my personal life. My family. So here are my girls. The oldest is Maya and Kayla, 18 and 16, and then my smallest is Julia. She's 11 going on 25. She's a handful. Been married to Lorena for over 21 years now, a little over 21 years. We're moving forward. It's an exciting time and a nervous time right now in our family because we're sending our oldest one to college, so she's going to Arizona here at the end of this month. And she's going to be attending Grand Canyon University, majoring in nursing. So it's been kind of interesting at home the last couple of weeks. And it's only going to get, I'm sure, just a little bit more challenging. So I know that a lot of my experience has been professionally working as a public servant in this community, dealing with conflict, being a peacemaker. And there's been a lot of challenges and a lot of things that I've learned throughout those years. But I actually learned the basic foundations of dealing with conflict growing up as a kid. Being the youngest of 7 kids, growing up in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, I learned pretty quickly the necessities to share, to collaborate, with my family and my siblings, and to deal with conflict resolution. The reality is that because I was the youngest, the conflicts were resolved pretty quickly because my older brothers would impose their will on me, and basically I'd have to do what they asked me to do, and I learned the skill of suffering in silence. But actually, what I did learn from that experience is that I saw things from the perspective of someone who was being shut out, who was not being listened to, who was not given a voice. And I remember being frustrated, right, and being upset. And as leaders, it's imperative for us to understand when we're dealing with conflict, we never, ever let one of those parties feel that way. You always have to give them a voice, whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent. You got to give them the opportunity to give them the platform for them to express themselves and get their feelings out and emotions out. And guess what? It's going to help us as we're going to learn a little bit how to better deal and maneuver through that and bring some resolution to whatever conflict it is you're dealing with. So let's talk about dealing with conflict. When we hear the word conflict, we always resort back to like the big screens, the movies or TV, right? It's good versus evil. It's heroes versus villains. The actuality is in our world, right? We don't necessarily deal with that per se. We actually deal with something that's more complex. We deal with good versus good. That's kind of interesting. How does that happen, right? When we're human. So before I can get into that and start talking about how that happens, and more importantly, how can we as leaders address that, as peacemakers address that, let's take a step back just so we're all on the same page and talk about what is the definition of conflict. In its simplest terms, a condition in which a person experiences a clash of wishes, opposing wishes, opinions, interests, and needs. Boy, that's the stuff that every organization deals with on a daily basis, right? Every school campus deals with on a daily basis. Every church deals with on a regular basis. And every home deals with on a regular basis. These are the kind of challenges that we as leaders face. So how do we address that? As leaders, it's how we respond to the conflict that makes us who we are. The worst thing as leaders we can do is minimize that or ignore that or hope that it goes away. Because all that does is it fosters and it builds and it creates something bigger than it should never been. So always remember that whenever there's an issue, a conflict, it's imperative for us to be able to respond to that and be able to effectively deal with that and mitigate that. The plus one as leaders and as peacemakers is to constantly be looking around and making sure that you prevent those kind of issues from occurring to begin with. And there's a lot of different ways of doing that. Oftentimes, conflict comes because there's a lack of what? Starts with the C, communication. And there's a lack of what? Understanding. So as leaders, it's imperative for us to constantly be sharing that message, that communication. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And this is how we can do it together. Can we have a situation where two people are right? Maybe? Yes? No? Right? Just because you're right doesn't make me wrong. You're just not seeing it through my lens. So as leaders, it's not just having that confidence because you know you're right and this is the way it's going to happen. You have to have that understanding from the people that are surrounding you of what their view and their opinions are and how they see things, because that may change your perspective. So we should never shut out other people's point of view. In fact, as peacemakers, that's a key component of understanding someone else's viewpoint. To be an ultimate peacemaker, again, whether you agree, disagree, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, you should be able to listen to the other party and actually argue their point for them. because that's how well you understand their viewpoint. When you're able to argue their point for them, boy, you have a clear understanding of what their mindset is and what they're thinking. We refuse to look at other people's perspectives sometimes. Why is that? Because of this. Because we have our own views. We have our own opinions. We have our own biases, right? We have our own needs. We have our own beliefs. We have our own interests. All this stuff is usually the cause for conflict. Again, you can have two people that are absolutely right, but because this comes into play, the conflict begins, and not willing to look at things from others' perspective. I'm going to talk a little bit about the art of disconnect, and this is hopefully a little tool, if you don't already know, just to help as a peacemaker get through conflicts. Disconnect, the art of disconnect, is as a leader being able to yourself disconnect from your own personal beliefs, your own personal views, and your own personal needs. Disconnecting from that personally. Don't get me wrong. Don't confuse disconnecting with not caring. What I'm saying with that is, as leaders, what we do is our needs are minimized because it's not about us. It's, if you're in an organization or entity or a family, it's about what the mission is about what the direction is, it's about what the overarching goal is. That's what the mission is. It's like the military, right? This is the mission. It's not about individual soldiers, it's about the team and about what we want to go and the direction we want to go. And that's the same concept in the art of disconnect. Disconnecting your personal feelings, personal views, doing the better good, and moving forward with that direction. In my profession in law enforcement, we call that putting on our professional face. Look, when we have officers leave the back lot and go out into the field and handle disputes, our officers' personal opinions, views, it's irrelevant. They are professionals. They are to remain unbiased, be able to show compassion and care and deal with conflict and resolve those issues. So it's not that they don't care, it's the fact that they disconnect and they put on their professional face. As leaders, we need to have an understanding with that and putting on our professional face to deal with issues. Because the second there's a dispute and there's name calling, and the person, us, leaders who come in, the peacemaker that comes in and starts yelling and getting involved, we've lost control. So we should never, ever get personally sucked in, emotionally sucked into an event. It's that professional face that we need to have when we're dealing with conflict and as leaders moving forward. It's about service before self. And that's the overall concept of being a leader and understanding that. That's hard. Very hard to do, right? Because we all have biases, opinions, views, beliefs. Very hard to do. But that's what's expected of leaders. And if you're in that role and you're in that peacemaker role, that's the understanding that you need to have. It's not about you. It's about what the overarching goal is. We need to value civility and respect. We need to show, like I mentioned, compassion, empathy, while at the same time trying to find the cause of what the issue is and trying to bring some resolution to that. And we're going to talk about how do you cut through what I call the noise, right? The bickering, the name calling, the emotions, all that stuff. You got to cut through that and get through the root cause and try to bring some resolution to some pretty significant conflicts. I want to talk about this for 1 second. Let me take a drink here. So when I was working in the gang unit, I'd often go and visit juvenile hall for follow-up investigations. And I remember going there one day, and one of the counselors was actually showing several kids that were in juvenile hall how to play board games. How to play board games. And it struck me. I remember as a kid playing board games. And think about what happens when you play a board game, whether it's Monopoly, whether it's Life, whatever the game is. What happens? What's the environment that's going on around? It's somewhat intimate, right? I mean, you're literally right across from your opponent, right? Or group of people, right? You're learning how to communicate, right? You're learning civility, right? Because you have to follow rules, right? You have to wait for your turn, right? You shouldn't be cheating, right? You learn about strategizing, but you also learn about compromising, right? There's a lot of skill set that you learn playing board games. We have generations that are missing that opportunity, right? Because what are the games they're playing? Video games. And what kind of video games? Video games that are online. They don't even see their opponents or people that they don't even know who they're playing with, right? And to top that off, especially with, and I'm not going to go into the types of video games that they're playing, but you think they're learning civility, right? Quite the opposite. They are literally, the games that are being played, and the most popular games that are being played are the kill or be killed. So you've got these kids that are mic'd up, playing with other people from across the nation and even overseas, playing these kill games. I share that with you because as leaders, these are the current and future employees that you're going to be dealing with and working with. These are your future and current members in your congregation, right? So you have to understand, like I mentioned already, their viewpoints and where they're coming from before you can actually start addressing issues. As leaders, it's imperative we understand their experience in order for us to better understand how we can communicate, how I can really dig down into your viewpoints, and more importantly, how I can dig down into your concerns. Understanding how we communicate. Just briefly talk about this. So, my words that I'm talking right now, you're probably getting about 7 to 10% of the actual words that are coming out of my mouth, right? That's what you're hearing, right? But as we communicate as a receiver, you're more focused on my pitch, my voice inflections, right? Whether I'm talking slow, whether I'm talking fast, right? Because what can you glean from that? If I'm talking fast, right, I'm maybe nervous, right? If I'm talking loud, right, I may be rude, angry, right? 50 to 60% is my body language, right? Okay, yeah, tell me what your problem is. What am I saying? I don't want to hear it, right? Rolling of the eyes, right? So think about that for 1 second. When we communicate and be effective communicators, if at all possible, very imperative that we have those face-to-face conversations. Because if you're just doing this through an email, where am I at here? Board games, talked about that. I apologize, there's a slide that's missing. But if we're just talking via email, you're only getting 7 to 10% of my communication. You're not seeing the voice inflections. You're not seeing my mannerisms, my body language. So understand that, again, when we communicate as leaders, when we're dealing with conflict, and I tell our young officers all the time, and I don't mean that they're short, but I'll pick them up and just pat them on the back sometimes, but your body language says more than what you say out of your mouth. You guys believe that? Okay. Let me give you a word. The word is dude. D-U-D-E. Dude. How many meanings do you think that has? How many ways can I use the word dude? Dude. Right? Approval. Right? Dude. Right? Dude. Right? Dude. Right? It's all about voice inflections, body language. Actually, the word is pretty minimal. The words that are coming out is very, very minimal. It's all this other stuff that comes out. So understanding how we communicate as leaders, because people key to how we act, and they respond to how we react. If I'm having my arms crossed and I'm trying to resolve an issue, do you think they're going to be open up about wanting to share? No. No. So as leaders, we just need to be cognizant of that and paying attention to that and understand that. Conflict mitigation, back on track. When people are upset, people are angry, whether it's domestic violence, whatever the case may be, as leaders, when we're trying to deal with conflict, we need to understand that people never mean what they say under pressure. People never mean what they say under pressure. Our job is not to respond to the words that are being said. Our job is try to find what the meaning is. I'll give you an example. This is a hypothetical. It's not me. I'm going to tell you that right now, okay? You know, getting off of work, husband, you know, he works late. He works hard, right? Wife works hard too, right? But he's in the grind. So when he comes home, eats dinner, leaves his dishes in the sink, doesn't wash them, right? Takes a shower, dries off, leaves a towel on the floor, right? This happens over and over and over again, right? Finally, one day he gets out of the shower and throws a wet towel on the ground. Wife comes in and says, "Hey, pig, pick your crud up," right? Disgusting slob, right? And boom, it happens, right? Okay, those are her words, right? What kind of emotion do you think she has? Anger? Frustration, right? Maybe fear? Just hold that thought on fear for a second, because I'm gonna get back to that. What do you think her meaning is? Why is she acting that way? Man, she's crazy. Getting all crazy just because I left a towel on the ground, right? No, that's not it. Because she feels, and her meaning is that she doesn't feel appreciated, right? She needs more help at home. Hey, we both work, but yet I still got to clean, I still got to cook, I still got to take care of the kids, I got to run the kids to back and forth to school. Yeah, you work, and that's great, I work too, but what about all this other stuff, right? So she doesn't feel appreciated, right? She's frustrated because she needs help. She may feel fear because she doesn't know about this relationship. I don't know if you still love me. I don't know if you just think I'm not your mom, I'm not a maid, right? So it's the meaning that we need to get down to. I tell officers, and we teach this to our officers, right? We get a report of sometime last 2 days, someone stole some planted pots in front of a porch, and the person just realized it, and they're called the police to take a report. Okay, right? Happened a couple of days ago, but nonetheless, we're going to send an officer out to handle that call, to make a report, right? Do you think that's a high priority for us or a low priority for us? Low priority, right? There's other stuff that's going on, but we'll get there, and our officers do. And when our officer gets there, the homeowner says, "Where you been? I've been waiting for 2 hours. 2 hours. I'm a taxpayer. Man, this is ridiculous. I'm going to call city council. This is ridiculous. 2 hours I waited." Okay? Officer can do one of two things, right? He can get sucked in emotionally. Hey, you know what? I ain't got time for this. I got other calls going. Bye, right? Go ahead and call city council member. I don't care, right? That's not the way we want our officers to respond. That's not the way leaders should respond. That's not the way peacemakers should respond. Our officers, our peacemakers are instructed and taught to deflect. Sir, I can understand that. I can understand your frustration, but I'm actually here to help you right now, so what can I do? Right? I totally agree with you, sir, and I would be frustrated too, but I'm here to help you now, so let's see what we can do. Right? You deflect all that garbage and you go into the root cause. Deflecting is another key. It's another way leaders and peacemakers can deflect that, right? you know what, you're worthless, blah, blah, blah. I can understand your viewpoint, but let's talk about what's going on here, right? Deflect and go into, not get sucked into it emotionally. You're screwed up. Well, you're screwed up too. No, that's not the response, right? Okay, I may not agree with that, but let's talk about why we're here. Deflect and refocus onto what the issue is. Understanding that we are all alike. What I mean by that is basic things like we all want to be respected. We don't want to be disrespected, right? We want to be asked to do something. We don't like being told what to do. We all want to know why. Okay, yeah, I can move my car around to the front, but why? I can do this for you, but why? We all want to know why. We all want to be given a voice. We all want to be given options and not threats. We all want to be given a second chance. So as leaders, as peacemakers, these are key things that we need to remember in the back of our minds. The same things we want is the same things we need to give. And if we expect respect, we're not just going to get it. We need to earn it, and we earn it by showing respect. Being an effective listener, it's key. I already talked about this from the beginning. An excellent peacemaker is someone that can hear and actually be able to understand and be actually able to argue those viewpoints. So being an effective listener and understanding and being unbiased. Listening to the words, but finding what the meaning is. Why are they feeling this way? Why are they acting this way? What is a true cause and what is a true meaning of what is really going on? Showing empathy and understanding, and always, always not only practicing civility, but expecting it within your organization and practicing it yourself. A true leader is one that does what they say and says what they do and what they expect. So I appreciate your time. I hope I've given you just a little bit of nuggets and help foster the discussions that's going to take place. But I want to thank you all again and hope you guys have a great morning. Thank you.